Steins Gate explained, at least partially. Let's go! Steins Gate. This show has 4 main characters. The first and the mainest one is Okabe Rintaro, member 001 of the Future Gadget Lab, aka Okarin and Hoin Kyoma. He is depicted as a borderline silly college student who pretends to be a secret agent, hounded by other secret agents, or alternatively, pretends to be completely insane. His deep connections with the main cast, Makise and Mayuri, make the backbone of the time travel narrative, and basically the whole show. Okarin possesses the ability known as Reading Steiner, and we'll discuss this ability later in the video. Secondary main character, Makise Kurisu, is an ingenious student, neuroscientist, and physicist, and she is also very tsundere. Also, we see her die immediately in the first episode. Now that's an introduction to a character. Her deaths, and there are a lot of them, are crucial in the series of events that occur in the beta timeline. As for what the hell a beta timeline is, we'll also discuss this later in the video. Makise is also a love interest to our main protagonist, but by God, she is also a love interest to the whole of the internet. Well, the anime part of the internet, which is the only important one. Makise has a similar design as Makima from Chainsaw Man, since fan artists were, and still are, drawing Makise in all imaginable and unimaginable scenarios, positions, and outfits, probably while breathing heavily and wiping their sweat with disposable napkins. It was only to be expected that a character that resembles her so much, Makima, gets the same treatment, albeit with even more need for disposable napkins. It appears that this kind of design, unintelligent, no-nonsense, and commanding redhead, is extremely striking, especially to the audiences that resemble our third member of the main cast, Itaru Hashida, aka Daru, aka Super Haka. He is an old friend of Okarin, member 003 of the lab, and a pretty accomplished hacker, as well as a pretty accomplished pervert. He keeps trying to get Mayushi to say, "Your banana is soft and squishy," and who could blame him? It is pretty funny. Now, who is Mayushi? Well, the most important thing to note is that Mayushi is by far the best girl of the show. The way she acts and talks gives out an impression of a person that is of limited intellect. And that impression is kinda correct. Any conversation with complex themes and innuendos, such as Daru's soft and squishy banana, fly right over her head. But Mayushi is sweet, kind-hearted, good-natured, and devoted to her friends. Oh yeah, she also dies dozens of times in the storyline, and her deaths are crucial for the Alpha timeline. Again, I will explain Alpha and Beta timelines later. There's also a Gamma timeline, in case you weren't confused enough. There is a long list of things to cover in this show, even longer than Daru's banana. Now, after we covered the characters, the most important thing to discuss is the means of time travel. How our protagonists actually traveled through time. As if the show wasn't convoluted enough, our heroes have 3 methods to achieve time travel. The goal of this video is not to follow the plot, twists, and turns of the chronological narrative of Steins Gate. Explaining that is a big challenge, and it necessitates its own separate video. This video seeks to explain authors' ideas, methods, and lastly philosophy used to create this incredibly convoluted story. Does all this sound complicated? Well, it is. Now, how do they travel through time? First method they use is D-mail. Now, had the showrunners had the foresight to consult me, I would have insisted that they name this method pre-mail. it has a better ring to it, and it's almost self-explanatory. Anyhow, the D-mails are messages sent through Okarin's phone. Using D-mails, individual is able to send information back through time via text messages and literally reset their own timeline. This reset entails that events that happened in this particular timeline will change, past and present, in order to conform with the information in the D-mail. More crucial and important info D-mail has, more will the past and present change in order to avoid paradoxes. To be more accurate, events won't change per se, but the timeline itself will shift and diverge from the original timeline into a brand new one, in which the info from the email will hold true and make sense. Secondly, there's the time leap machine. This machine makes it possible for memories of an individual to be sent from present into the past. This is extremely well thought out and innovative. It is based on the philosophical idea that personality of an individual is simply a collection of that person's memories and experiences. Therefore, if we could transfer those memories and experiences back in time to our older self, that would be the equivalent of us traveling back in time. Person in the past who receives the memories of the future will be the same person as the one from the present, the one who sent memories back in time, even though there was no actual physical time travel. Person in the past who received future memories will be the same person as the one sending the memories, because, as we said, philosophy of the matter dictates that a person is just a collection of their memories and experiences. This is a very original take on time travel, and is amazingly well executed in this show. Time limit for this form of time travel is 48 hours, because if you try to send it further back in the past, person receiving the memories will have mental issues. Now, the ability to retain memories of time travel, memories of the future events, is called reading Steiner, and Okarin seems to be special and the only one to have it. I say it seems because most of the characters appear to retain memories of alternate divergent timelines, even though it is not noted that they possess reading Steiner. They retain their memories through realistic dreams or deja vu. The one who uses reading Steiner cannot change past events that already happened, like D-mail can. The user can only retain memories between shifted timelines. The third method for time travel is an old-school time machine. It enables anyone to step into the machine and travel back in time, but the machine cannot switch and diverge timelines. The problem with this method is that there will be no divergences and new realities. All that happened must be respected and played out. The causality and logical sequence of events must be followed to the letter. For example, Okarin from the future, that traveled back into the first episode of the show, must take care not to meet himself from the past, in order to avoid time travel paradoxes. Time travel paradox is the idea you probably already heard about. What would happen if you were to travel back in time and kill one of your ancestors? Does that mean that you'll never be born? If that happened, the ancestor died and you were never born. Then who traveled back in time to kill the aforementioned ancestor? And if you traveled and killed him, then how were you even born? And this loop goes on and on perpetually, without resolution. Now, what are the consequences of breaking the causality in this particular show is not clearly stated, but knowing the nature of the ancestor paradox, and seeing Daru's bananas that are so green, soft and squishy, it is reasonable to assume that paradoxes are to be avoided at all costs. Now, we met the characters and we know how they travel through time. Let's see how timelines, universes, and and realities work in Steins Gate. There are infinite possible realities and timelines. Knowing that, it is important to understand the concept of crucial points in the timelines, the concept of attractor fields, as the show calls them. A tractor field represents a cluster of realities, timelines that will all end with the same outcome. To be more precise, they will all have one event that must happen and will be the same in all these timelines. This means we have a bunch of timelines and realities with minor differences, but with the same main outcome. This is why we don't just have truly infinite number of possible timelines with stupidly tiny and insignificant differences. For the purpose of storytelling, we have two main and most important timelines, alpha and beta timelines, with their own respective attractor fields, and those attractor fields have key differences in events and outcomes. Within the alpha timeline, the attractor field dictates that Mayuri must die, and CERN must end up ruling the world. In the beta timeline, its attractor field dictates that Makise Kurisu must die and World War III must erupt. These two timelines are mutually exclusive. Ocarine cannot have his squishy banana and eat it too. This is why Ocarine was unable to keep Mayushi alive, no matter how many times he traveled with the time leap machine or used D-mails. Okarine's attempts to save Mayushi happened during the middle of the show's run, and at that point, Ocarine was firmly stuck in the beta timeline, in the timeline where Makise lives and Mayushi does not. There are no possible divergence in the attractor field of the beta timeline where Mayushi lives, no matter how hard Ocarine tries to find it. The moment when Ocarine realizes this is very important. This is how he understands that he has to travel even further into the past in order to change the conditions of both alpha and beta timelines before Makise or Mayushi die. This is the only way Ocarine has even a sliver of a chance to return to the alpha timeline and do his duty as a hero protagonist and save his girlfriend and his childhood friend. By the way, Gamma timeline also exists, and the state of this timeline is all wrong. Ocarine doesn't enjoy Dr. Pepper. He drinks Mountain Dew. This alone is reason enough to suspect that something is horribly wrong with Gamma timeline. Not only that, Mayushi does not address Ocarine with her iconic Ocarine. She actually calls him Okabe-kun. The moment I heard words Okabe-kun leave Mayushi's innocent tender lips, I immediately lost all interest in the Gamma timeline, which is probably for the best. You don't mess with perfection. So, where's the border? Where's the point where the original timeline diverges into alpha and beta timelines? Closest thing to that the show offers us are converging points. What the hell are converging points? Those are the points where similar and important events happen in both timelines. If the traveler manages to change some of the events in the converging point, there is a chance that the traveler switches timelines from alpha to beta and vice versa. Problem here is how to find these converging points and what to actually do with them. It is again crucial not to disrupt the causality. D-mail, for example, can change the diverging points, wiping out some of the past, replacing it with new events that match the new D-mail timeline. This implies that even though we have nigh infinite possible timelines and realities, only one of them is real. Only one of them is active at any point in the show. There can be only one real timeline at a time. You see what I did there. The other infinite realities are only possibilities. They represent what potentially could happen. They are literally what-if scenarios to our one and only real timeline. Next is the theory of two ocarins. What's that? Well, in order for the plot to unfold the way it is shown in the anime, it is absolutely necessary for two entities called Okaberintero to exist. This theory has numerous implications, but the most important one is that one version of the Okaberintero entity did live through the beta timeline. This is the timeline where Makise dies, if you're still paying attention. Hopefully you're taking notes. All of this will be on the test. This version of Ocarin is the one that finally figures out how to save both girls, and in the distant future, he makes a video with detailed instructions on how to do this. Now, who the hell is gonna receive this video and act upon it? Well, none other than the other entity called Okaberintero, the other version of Ocarin, the one we followed through the majority of the show's run. Both versions of Ocarin must exist and live through their respective timelines so that the events of the 22nd episode can occur. It would not be far from the truth to say that this show has two main protagonists, two ocarins, and each one with their respective actions influence each other's timelines and help each other out. It is as if they're playing a sci-fi version of ping pong that transcends time and space. Actually, Steins Gate 0 is showing us the life of one of these ocarins, just to make it ever so slightly more complicated. It is important to note that the show starts in the beta timeline. Now, where the chronological timelines go next is a pretty complex question. The timelines in the show switch all the time, always connected to attractor fields, always connected to the deaths of Mayuri or Makise. In the very beginning, Ocarin uses, unknowingly, the email system and sends an email to our Super Haka. That would be that message that was broken in multiple emails that Daru received earlier. With this email, Ocarin shifts himself into the Alpha timeline, because, as we stated, the emails change the events of the past and present depending on the information within the message in order to avoid paradoxes. The thing that makes the story especially confusing is the fact that all the plot that we see unfold already happened. Why is that? Well, the reality we are witnessing while watching the anime has Suzuha in it. Suzuha actually traveled back in time in order to prevent dystopian chaos of her timeline. Think of Trunks, just with less pigtails. This means that the Alpha timeline already happened, and it happened at least once. What we're watching in the anime is the second run through the events of the Alpha timeline, a second iteration of this particular reality. This must be so, because if not, Suzuha's reality with dystopia would never have happened. She wouldn't even exist in the way that she does, and she certainly would not have a time machine to travel back in time with. Basically, what we're witnessing is the second iteration of the events that should result with Alpha timeline. They should, but they do not, because Ocarin somehow manages to understand this whole mess of timelines, realities, and concepts, and achieve his happy end. Sasuga Ocarin. It is truly a feat to understand what is happening in this show, even from the comfort of your couch when you're watching the show. I can't even begin to imagine how hard it is to grasp all this while you're actually living the worlds of Steins Gate. What is certain is that Ocarin somehow managed against all odds, to have his squishy and soft banana and eat it too. Damn, I got a headache from all this time leaps. Steins Gate is filled to the brim with ideas and concepts that people are interested in ever since we left the caves. It deals with time paradoxes, physics, philosophy, memories, what it is that makes a human human, questions whether our actions actually matter, or if everything that will happen is already set in stone. What philosophers like to call determinism. Is everything scripted and pre-programmed? Or maybe our future is in our hands and dependent on our choices? Do we actually have meaningful choices and, consequently, free will in this universe? Well, if we actually do not have freedom of choice and consequence in this universe, then, as the show stipulates, it is absolutely guaranteed that we do have freedom of choice and consequence in some other universe, and that universe might be much closer than we expect. The reality we strive for might indeed be within our grasp. Maybe the universe we desperately want is just one D-mail away. That's it for Steins Gate. Okarin and myself signing out. El Psy Kungru. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Do follow us on social networks and check out other videos on our channel. That's it. See you next time. Bye bye.